I am going to be talking today about how to go virtual with your Light Up a Life campaign. You may know it as Lights of Love, Celebrate a Life, Light Up the Lake, Lights to Remember, but effectively it's the same campaign for all of us. Majority of people listening in today, I should say, are hospice fundraisers. We do have a few from other charities that cover similar causes such as healthcare, and you will hopefully all find this fairly relevant. So So this is where we're going. So as I said before, so I'm going to cover fundraising. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my story. So why I decided to go virtual back in 2015. I've been doing this for a while now. How I did it. I'm going to show you some examples. Oh, we've lost sound. I'm here. Okay. Well, where is this? Can we hear? Is it working again? Okay. Okay. I'm going to show you some examples of some other virtual hospice appeals, how you can do it yourself, and we're then going to cover some thoughts I've had on virtual events, and then we're going to have Claire from the Heart of Kent Hospice who is going to share her story as well. And then hopefully we'll have time for questions at the end. So this is me. So I am a fundraiser. I'm an in-memory fundraising consultant. I'm the co-founder of VisuFund, which is a visual fundraising platform that some of you may have come across. I'm also the trustee of a small charity in my local area, so I'm based in the Northwest. And my background is I've been fundraising since 2007. My specialisms are individual giving and in memory. That's always what I've covered in all the various roles that I've worked in. I have experience across health, arts, education and disability charities. I've spent the last 12 months as well working with my local hospice on quite a big individual giving project in terms of kind of upgrading their individual giving program and looking at how they can introduce virtual giving into their offer. And since 2015, I've worked on almost 100 virtual Light Up a Life campaigns in some capacity. So hopefully have some experience to share. So the key elements of the Light Up a Life appeal, I just thought it was worth covering this for anybody who is maybe wondering what Light Up a Life is. I'm sure most of you know, but you may refer to it by a different name. So basically the concept is you're going to make a dedication. So you're going to be asking your supporters to dedicate a light or a star or whatever it might be, a forget-me-not or a sunflower. The appeal is very much the same, asking them to dedicate something in somebody's name. You're asking obviously for a donation to your charity. And there's usually some form of event that's involved as well. So you're usually going to have an event invitation in there. And what that's going to do is that is going to obviously generate income. But from my point of view, as somebody who's interested in memory, your supporters are going to take comfort in celebrating a loved one. And they're also going to feel like they're part of a community. So, you know, particularly at those events, they're going to see other people who are maybe grieving, who have lost a loved one. So that's the key elements that I want to cover. And whether we're doing it physically or virtually, it's really important that we try to cover as much of that as we can. So my story, so I decided to go virtual in 2015, and this is my story. So I was working for a cancer charity. And it was a national cancer charity. I'm based up not far from Liverpool. And being a national charity based in Liverpool, a lot of our supporters were obviously all over the UK. And what we found was that we weren't reaching them equally. And what I had spotted was that we had donation hotspots. So basically, wherever we were holding an event, so we had events in Liverpool, London and Glasgow, and wherever we had an event, that was where our donations were coming in. You know, if you're on a hospice, you probably find majority of your supporters are in your regional catchment area, but I was having to think about this on a national scale with a kind of localized base, so which is why I was thinking about it a few years ago. And our income at the charity had been declining for the previous 3 years. It had reached a peak and it was just going down and down and down. And we really couldn't work out how we could bring it back up again. So what I was worried about was it wasn't inclusive, because a lot of our supporters, if they were in Cornwall or even Birmingham, you know, big cities, weren't able to attend an event and weren't able to feel part of a community. I was also spending a huge amount of my time focusing on the events instead of the actual fundraising appeal, you know, booking venues, looking at risk assessments. That is not my skill set. I really felt that the key thing was to make sure that the income was generated through the appeal. I'm sure many of you will relate to the struggle with the Book of Remembrance or your Book of Dedications, where you had internal problems in terms of you'd have to set a deadline for when people have to submit their names if they wanted to be included in a book. You'd have problems with spelling mistakes. People couldn't find their names in the book. They would have sent in their donation, but the name had gone missing somewhere. And it really was, it was a bit of a headache, to be honest. So I was looking for a way that we could improve that, because actually I wanted to ensure that people could donate right until, you know, Christmas. In this case, the appeal was called Celebrate at Life at Christmas, but we were asking people to submit their donations by mid-November if they wanted to be in the book. And of course, people coming up to me at the event and saying, "Which light is shining for my mum?" I said, "Oh, they're all shining for everyone." And that was quite a difficult conversation to have with people. I think it works better these days with things like the forget me not appeals work well when you've got these planted iron forget me nots everywhere, and often with a tag or a name. But it looks like we've lost sound. Hopefully some of you can still hear me. There will be a recording afterwards for anybody who's struggling with the sound. Okay, so I've gone off on a little bit of a tangent here. So basically I was looking for a way to ensure that supporters knew which light was their light, in the same way you would want supporters to know which forget-me-not is their forget-me-not, which sunflower is their sunflower, if you've got those little ones that you put in your gardens of your hospice grounds. Of course, that's very difficult to do on a physical tree. So the idea was that I wanted to move the focus away from a physical event to a virtual event, or a physical appeal to a virtual appeal. Not entirely. I think it's very crucial to kind of say that the offline version, the physical version, regardless of whether you go virtual or you do anything online, never neglect your mailings, never neglect your core supporters. Most people, even if you're asking for donations online, a huge number of your supporters will still donate by check, because that's what they've always done. But I wanted to move the focus away from that so that there was an option for others. So I wanted to invite supporters to light up a virtual Christmas tree. I wanted to encourage storytelling, because I felt that that was a really good way to connect on the emotional level with supporters. We'd previously just asked for the name of the person they were remembering, but I also wanted to find out a bit more about them, partly because I think that's a really lovely thing to do and it's nice for the supporters, but also with that emotional connection, you're frequently going to get higher donations as well. And I was looking to reduce the event costs and look at ways that we could invest in other things such as video that would allow supporters all over the place to see the video and see the events and see the light switching on. I know that there's loads of people out there that have already had these ideas. This is not rocket science. The problem was it was far too expensive to actually do that. So I spoke to a whole bunch of web developers, I spoke to companies. All I wanted was a website with a Christmas tree, and when you made a donation, a light appeared on it. But when they're quoting £20,000 to build a website, and you're thinking we're not even going to make that back in 5 years' time, that's when you start questioning the costs. But I spoke to quite a few fundraisers at the time, and they told me that they'd had similar ideas. They wanted to do it, but the problem was they couldn't, because it was unaffordable, it was unachievable. So my solution was, if you want something done, do it yourself. So I am fortunate to know some very good web developers. I spoke to them about the idea that we just wanted a Christmas tree. When you made a donation, a light would appear. And we realized that if we could build the technology that would work, so you'd have a picture, and when you donate, something appears on that picture, then actually all that charities would need to do is have an interchangeable picture on the front. So you could use any different picture, any charity could use it. And instead of one charity paying £20,000 and every charity needing to pay £20,000 for a website, we would be better off building a fundraising platform where that was possible. So that was VisuFund. We built it in 2015, and it was very successful. So we trialed it with the cancer charity I was working for, and these were the results. So on the first year of the campaign, we raised 4 times more online than we had the previous year. 30% of donors to the appeal were brand new, as in they had never given, they weren't even on the database. So we were getting a lot of referrals from things like social media, where people were following the charity but weren't necessarily engaged and hadn't given us contact information. The total appeal income that year finally increased, and it increased by 20%, which was quite massive considering it had been dropping by over 10% every year. So that was massive. The average donation that we received was 16% higher online compared to offline. We started receiving donations from a wider geographic area, including some donations from people overseas, which had never happened on that particular appeal. We got great press coverage, really great donor feedback, and clearly as a result, there was a really great significant improvement in return on investment. So what I want to do is show you what that looks like. I'll show you that campaign, and then I'm going to show you how that's then been replicated by other hospices and how you can do the same. So hopefully you can see this now. So this is the original Christmas tree that we did. So this was the one I was doing. It was for Roy Castle Lung Cancer Foundation. So every light on this tree, every star, every bauble, every present has been dedicated in memory of somebody special. And when you're visiting the page, you're invited to choose whether you want, what you want to add on to the tree. So if we click donate, we've got a choice of different things we can add. Obviously on this page, the page has run out of lights. It's run out of the tree topper. There's only one. We had asked for a donation of £500, and we were amazed that somebody did actually give £500. It was not somebody that at that charity we knew had the capacity to give at that level. So we'd set different price points at the different decorations that you could have, and we were pretty pleased with it. It went really well. So that's quite beautiful. So what it does is you can hover over the various different decorations and see the names of the loved ones, and you can click in and find out a bit more, maybe read some messages and see who's being remembered and the messages behind. So moving forward, we obviously worked out that had worked, that had been very successful, and a lot of charities then got in touch with VisuFund to try and do something similar. So as I said before, I was working with my local hospice, which is Queen's Court Hospice up in Southport. I was working with them last year on quite a long project looking at their individual giving, and they were really keen to go virtual as well. They'd experienced some of the same problems in terms of income dropping and wanting to increase it. So this is actually a photo of the hospice, and on the page we can see all of these lights then dedicated to somebody special. You'll see now that we've developed the technology, so there's also now photos with the messages as well, and that adds to the sort of emotional connection with the page. The families are able to write messages. They're able to send e-cards to friends and family when they make a donation. And everything's kind of on brand. So, I mean, if you can see the logo in the top left, you can see that the colors of the buttons are very much on brand. The colors of the lights are on brand, and clearly the hospice itself is part of the picture. What we also did, which was an interesting development for the hospice here, you can see this button here, create your own tree. So we invited supporters to do their own tree for a loved one. So this lady down here is a lady called Lorna, and the supporter, much like they would do if they were setting up, say, a tribute fund, created their own Christmas tree dedicated to one specific person, and then they ran it as their own. Well, it was Lights of Love at this charity, Lights of Love at the hospice. They ran it as their own appeal. So every light on this tree is dedicated to that one person. So what we saw supporters saying things like, you know, if you would have bought me a Christmas card this year, please instead make a donation to light up Mum's tree. Or we were seeing donations from colleagues, neighbours, people that knew this person, you know, themselves, but perhaps didn't have the connection with the hospice. So it was a really interesting way to kind of grow that, and also work more closer with the people that had maybe taken part in events. So you'll always find with any hospice or charity that you have some supporters that give money and some supporters that do things and raise money. So you've got, I always called it the givers and the doers. The givers will give to your Light Up a Life appeal, and the doers are more likely to create their own fundraising page and then ask their network to give. So that was last year. That worked really well. So Queen's Court saw an over 50% increase in their online donations as a result of going virtual, and again, much better press coverage than they'd had previously. I'm just going to whiz over to a couple of other ones to just show you how it works. So obviously that Queen's Court one was very bespoke. It's got a picture of the hospice in it. So at VisuFund, we have two different things that we do. We're free to join, and it's free to create pages using any template from our library. So we have what we call a template library, which means that you can create a page that looks like the pictures we've pre-designed. And they're usually relatively generic, so anybody can give them a go. Clearly, I'm a fundraiser and understand the sort of the red tape and what's involved with signing up to platforms. So it's free to join. It's a donation fee of 3.9%. We also offer a pro plan if you're expecting to raise, say, over £10,000 in a year, which is very doable as a hospice. For £349 there for the year, there's then no platform fee at all. So that's then locked. No, whether you raise £1 million, whether you raise £100,000, whatever it is, there'll be no donation fees other than the standard payment processing fees on your donation. So you can try it and see if it works. So this is St Richard's Hospice. They're based in Worcester. I think we might have Rachel on the call who used to work there, but hello Rachel if you're listening. So this is using one of the templates from our library. So they gave this a go for their Lights of Love appeal. They actually filled the tree, which was brilliant. Works exactly the same. So every bauble, light, present has been dedicated to somebody special, and we can see all the pictures and the messages. It's very, very moving. They did a really great job with their appeal. They had a really strong marketing campaign behind it, making sure that the web address was shared in the mailing is really, really key, making sure that it's promoted on the website, that emails are going out with the link in it, that social media is strong. If your campaign perhaps doesn't involve a Christmas tree, or you want to avoid that focus on maybe the religion, which I know a lot of people do, you might find something a bit more generic, more useful. So this is Halton Haven Hospice. This is their Lights of Hope appeal. They actually only launched this like a month ago. They did this as part of their coronavirus response emergency appeal. But every candle on this lake is dedicated to a loved one. So you can see what I mean about how the appeal is very much the same. It's still about putting something on the picture. It's about having your virtual light, whether it's a virtual candle, a virtual star. It's about sharing that photo. It's about telling that message. And it's really about sharing the stories. These are incredibly shareable. What I should say as well is if I click on a message and click this, which is the share icon, I can put it directly on Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, etc. And what we see is that when people have made their dedication, quite rightly, they want to share it. They want to show people what they've done. So then they are sending, they're generating more traffic through to your site. So that's worked really well. Oh, that's getting just in the way. Can I just, okay. This, on a slightly different note, again, the same kind of campaign. This is a Forget-Me-Not appeal. This is Woodlands Hospice, very, very current appeal. Lots of you will be doing this as well. So you can see it's the same technology behind everything. We've got a picture. When we click donate, we can find a Forget-Me-Not. It will choose one at random, or we can find another one, or we can hover over and we can find them ourselves if we want something perhaps nearer the butterfly, or whatever it might be. We can select it, we can write who we're dedicating it to, who it's from, a message, we can upload a photo and choose a color, and we can choose whatever donation amount we want. You as the charity would also be able to set what that suggested amount would be, or if you want to ask for a specific amount for the flower. But again, this has worked really, really well for Woodlands. They would normally be doing their physical appeal at this point in time, but for obvious reasons, they can't have people coming in and they can't be planting the iron Forget-Me-Not. So this has been a really good alternative. I believe they are still also running the physical campaign. I think Carol also may be on the call today. So if Carol's listening, perhaps at the end, Carol can tell us a little bit about their appeal as well. But it's certainly working really, really well for them. It's been a really good way to kind of engage with supporters. And then finally, I wanted to show you this one, which is Willowbrook Hospice. So this is a memory tree, and you may see, you've probably all got things like this in your own hospice. You may have one of those beautiful donor trees in your reception area with the gold leaves, and when somebody's raised £1,000 or whatever it might be, they get a name engraved on a leaf. Problem I had, and again, going back to my original story, working for a national charity without that base and without having somewhere that people could come, I needed something virtual that people all over the country could still see. And I also know from my, compared to a lot of you, brief stint in the hospice sector, that actually there can be a little bit of it can be a difficult one to get something like a donor tree approved, because you don't necessarily want to be walking straight into the hospice and seeing a list of names of people who have been remembered. It may not fit the culture of your organisation that well, but if you've got a website, then people can actually view the leaves, and you can direct your in-memory supporters to a very specific place where they can share the names and they can share the pictures. So that's how it works. I don't want to dwell on it too long because we've got loads to cover with the event section as well, but just to very, very quickly show you just how easy it is. It's visufund.com if you want to give it a go. So it's free to join us. It's free to publish pages using any template from our library. So this is all the different templates we've got. I should also say that it's not just an in-memory platform, so you may not have come across us for this reason. We also do things like, we've got a research lab there, we've got triathlon templates. We've been talking to a couple of hospices recently about setting up a virtual midnight walk, because I know a lot of you are a bit worried about what's going to happen with all these events. So we've got all kinds of different templates, birthday pages, things that are more suitable for children with penguins and pumpkins. So there's loads of different things. I could spend ages and I don't want to, because I know you're all very, very busy. So I'm going to keep focused on Light Up a Life. So what you would do is you would have a scroll through the templates. You would choose the one. I recommend using a free one in your first year. We can do designs as well. There is obviously a cost associated with that, but as opposed to 20,000, you'd be looking at more like £250. It could even be less depending on what you're looking at. But if you just use something from the library, it'd be free. So you choose your template, click on it. You would then click create a page with this template. You can actually try all this without even having an account if you just want to play with it, or sign up for an account because it's free and you'll have access to more settings because supporters can create pet pages as well, as we've seen. So I'm in a demonstration account here called Great Charity. If you've been on any of my webinars before, you will have come across Great Charity before, my fantastic logo. So all you would do is you would you'd give your page a title. It would automatically create a page web address, and you would, you know, you'd write your case for support. So this is your ask. This is where you're going to put your ask in. That is all you have to do to publish a page on the platform. If we view that now, we can see we're ready to go. All the work is done for you. You don't have to do more. We can see when we click shuffle, this is what the page is going to look like as donations come in. We can also brand it a little bit further. I'm just going to show you how. We can do things with the different templates. We can change what it says on the buttons. We can change the suggested donation amount. So you might want to give £20.67. What I wanted to show you really was the branding element, because I think it makes it a little bit more interesting, particularly as a visual fundraising page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the colors that are available on the baubles. And instead of having all these colors, I'm going to say I want 3 colors for the baubles that supporters can choose from. And so the colors I am going to choose are these ones. So I've set my brand colors within my charity account settings. Now I'm also going to go into display settings. These are the default colors on the buttons. But again, when I've set up my charity account, I've put my brand guidelines in. So I'm going to apply my saved colors. It's going to change the colors of the buttons. And now when we view the page, we can see it's more on brand with the exact color references. You can see that the tree looks now more like It's My Tree. And so these are advanced settings, but they are, I'm always here. I'm cheerleading you all the way. If you are trying to run a campaign like this and need support, I'm absolutely here to help you get the most out of it, because I know how valuable this is to you. Then all your supporters would do, they'd come along, they'd click donate, they'd have a choice of what they were going to add on that tree. You'd get all the data. I know that's really important. You'll be able to track the kind of analytics on your campaign. So we can, you can use things like this to track how many page views you've got, how many, what sort of value of donations you're getting on a daily basis to kind of see how your marketing campaigns are going. So there's loads of stuff in there. I would happily spend forever talking to you about it if you want to, and I would suggest that if you are interested, maybe just drop me an email. So it's emily@visufund.com. I'm happy to take questions at the end as well, but I think let's move back on, because we do have loads to cover, and I'm sure Claire is keen to get going on her bit as well. So that's the fundraising side of things. If we move on to the event, so like the fundraising appeal, it's really important, if you've got something that used to exist physically and you're now doing it virtually, you need to replicate the physical and the virtual as much as possible. Obviously, my reasons for going virtual are very different from yours. We don't even know if you will have to, but it's certainly worth thinking about this now. It sounds like the guidance is changing on a daily basis. So definitely have a contingency plan in place. And this may be valuable to do even if you don't have to go virtual, because you may reach a wider audience. So when you're doing an event, Claire's going to tell us more about how she's done it, but these were the ideas that I have had. So normally you would be looking at things like venues. So you'd have to hire it, you have to do your health and safety, worry about parking, access, risk assessments. The beauty of virtual is you don't have to worry about that. It's online and it's in the supporter's own home, which is, it's actually music to my ears as somebody that does not really like organising events. In the physical event, you would normally have a host that would guide you through the service, but virtually you could perhaps do a live stream, or you could pre-record the whole thing and you could just play it live. You normally would have volunteers and families delivering readings at the service, and that's quite key as well. Really nice opportunity for them to engage with what you're doing. But there's nothing to stop them pre-recording it on their own phone, so they could record themselves delivering their reading and send it to you. And again, you can put these videos all on a timeline and actually produce your service. You'd normally have musicians and a choir. You'd have some sort of band or something. Again, I would say here, look at pre-recorded videos. Talk now to your musicians that you normally talk to, whether it's a choir or whoever it might be, and ask them what they're doing in self-isolation. I'm a musician. What you can see behind is all kinds of sheet music and stuff. I have probably done more videos in the last 2 months than I've done in my life. And they work really, really well. As long as you've got somebody with the technology to put the music together, there's nothing to stop your musicians from getting involved with your service, producing the videos. And again, it's all about video technology. If you don't have the skill, somebody in your organization does, or one of your volunteers does. There's a lot of free software out there that you can use to set these up. The most important bit of your virtual Light Up a Life service, or your real one, is obviously when you switch on the lights and there's an opportunity to read the book. So here I would suggest that you would maybe share a live, you could screen share your tree that's got all the virtual names on. You can add, I forgot to mention as well, you can add offline donations to the tree. So people, as they're giving, if they are paying by check, you as the charity admin on that account can add those names to the tree so that you're doing it in real time and people can donate right up to the date of your service. And you could ask supporters to share photos of their own trees. Maybe you're sending them a bauble that they can hang on their tree, and you can ask them to put that picture on social media, or take a photo of a candle that they've got, and they can all switch on their tree at home at the same time. Clearly, one of the things that will be missing is the income generation from your service, and that's key, and that's going to be a blow. So I struggled with this one, I'll be honest, but you could think about selling merchandise online. So if you have, say, a shop, or you have, I know at Queen's Court they had some amazing knitters that were knitting lovely little crochet toys and things. Take photos of them, put them up on social media. Maybe even something as simple as an eBay shop if you don't have a dedicated shop, and then ask your host to actually highlight that in their speech, that this is something that the hospice will be struggling with during this crisis. I would say asking the host to highlight it is probably the most important one, and then asking them if they want to donate. And they could even put a light on live whilst that service was happening. They could go onto your website and see their light turn on. And the other thing that's key about the events is that people can meet other families and staff. And that's really important when you're grieving. I know when I've spoken to bereaved supporters that what they get a lot of comfort from is seeing other people who feel the same. A lot of them have said to me that Christmas doesn't really start until that service has taken place. So for them, it's part of the tradition. It's something that they do every year to pay tribute and to really celebrate the life of that person that they love. So what I was thinking here was you could actually set up something like a Facebook event, or you have a forum on your website, and the people that would normally come or that wanted to come and engage with those kind of conversations and talking to people, they could chat amongst themselves. Maybe you could prompt them with questions. You could ask them to have a conversation about whatever it is. What are you going to do on Christmas Day to remember your loved one? Well, what do you have that you can suggest that will help the other people who maybe it's their first Christmas? I was also thinking that what you could do is you could send people who have made a donation, you could send them a poster that they could put in their window to say they're taking part, or you could ask them to put a candle or a lantern in their window. And that would show people that, if they looked out the window and saw somebody over the road with a candle in their window, they would know that that person was also taking part. And it's all really just about creating that sense of community. So those are the ideas I had. I am going to ask Claire Claire Ashby, supporter care manager from the Heart of Kent Hospice, to Claire is requesting remote control of my screen. Yes, there we go, Claire. Claire, you should now be able to click. Can you click? Well done, Claire. How about that? Okay, Claire, take us through it.
Thank you, Emily. Just to kind of follow on from what Emily's just been saying, we, like a lot of hospices up and down the country, hold a Sunflower Remembrance Service every year, where we send out a mailing campaign. We used to send it to 4,000 people. This is what we've done in the past. We send it to bereaved donors and those who've given in memory. They are invited to make a donation in memory of their loved one, and then the name of their person they're dedicating their donation to is written onto a sunflower marker, and then the sunflower markers are displayed in planters in the garden. We invite everybody to come in for a short remembrance and reflection service, which is usually held on the first Saturday morning in June. The service is always held in our hospice garden. The planters are put out with the sunflowers in alphabetical order, and we have one of our volunteer chaplains who leads a short 15 to 20 minute remembrance and reflection service and dedicates and blesses all the markers that are in there. We usually get about 300 people who come to our services, and our garden's not that big, so you can imagine there's quite a few people who are hidden around all these different planters, and then they're all kind of bumping into each other to try and find their sunflower marker for their loved one. They're allowed to take them home with them if they'd like to, or they can leave them in the garden and come back so other people can see them. And then after a month, we remove them and keep them in the fundraising office for people to come back in for when they need them. Alongside the service, we have a couple of our volunteer gardeners who grow plants for us to sell, as well as little potted sunflowers that are donated by a local florist. There's also large ceramic sunflowers that people can buy, and we have our cafe open as well, which is serving hot drinks and cakes, and it gives people a chance to come together to meet people and to share memories. There was a story of last year when there was two gentlemen who recognised each other and realised that their wives were actually in rooms next door to each other, and had passed away about 6 months ago within a few days of each other. And they got chatting, and the daughters of the reciprocal dads got chatting as well, and it was really nice to see the daughters to connect and the dads connect and agree that actually they were going through the same thing and they were going to get together and have a coffee in the future. And I think that's something that we need to be very mindful of, that isn't going to happen at the moment with the way that we're having to do things. So I thought I'd share a couple of photos of what we've done in the past. You can see the sunflowers that we sell, little cards that we give people to take away, and then joys of what things used to be like, of people milling around, finding their sunflowers and spending time together. So this year we won't be able to have scenes like this. You can see our chaplain and chief executive kind of standing by the hospice doors, and everybody sitting and standing together in the sunshine. But it's going to be a long time till we can do things like that. So we need to look at what we can do. We were very lucky that we hadn't actually sent our DM campaign for the Sunflower Appeal. It usually lands beginning to middle of April, and for some reason there's something that happened that said, no, let's hold fire for a bit, and then of course we all went into lockdown. So we looked at how we could reduce the costs for our DM campaign, while still looking to try and bring in some funds to the hospice. So we've decided to do a completely targeted DM that's due to land this Friday. We're going to do a little notelet that is going to invite our regular sunflower donors to make a donation and join our virtual sunflower service. This is going to be about 280 people, and these are people who donate to our sunflower service year in, year out, stalwarts that come to the service that we know would miss the service and need that connection to the hospice and their loved one. We're also going to do a separate targeted DM, which is going to go to lapsed sunflower donors who have donated once to the sunflower but haven't donated again, and that's to about 130 people as well. And that will cut down our expenditure quite a bit on the campaign, rather than sending to 4,000 people and hoping you get some sort of attrition from it, we're actually cutting it right down. And each DM pack that goes out has got a note-lit card that will invite people to join us for our service, and it's very much kind of an invitation. It's going to have a bookmark inside it, and it's also going to have a donation slip that they can return with a free post envelope. But they've also got the option then that they can call in and speak to me to make their donation over the telephone. And we've also got an online Sunflower Remembrance Garden, not Fishy Fund one. It's a Much Loved one because we're a Much Loved partner, and they've got their dedication pages that you can use as a partner. So we've got one set up for that, and on there they can leave a dedication, a photograph and a donation with theirs in that way. We are also going to follow up with an emailer to those who've not donated and who've not made contact, just to check they're okay. And we've got one of our ambassadors who's really keen to get involved, and she is going to ring people, not mention a donation, and just check that they know how to join the virtual service, because I'm sure, as a lot of hospices know, we are talking to an older generation who may be slightly scared of YouTube and Facebook and joining a virtual service. So the virtual service, we are going to film it beforehand in the garden. We're actually filming it next Thursday, and then we're going to stream it live on the 13th of June at 11 o'clock, which is when our service would have taken place. The reasoning for this, we had lots of conversations of, oh, it's not going to look live and people aren't going to like it, and what are we going to do about that? But we felt that the internet connection that we had is not strong enough for us to be able to do a live streaming. And we felt that if people kind of joined us and then it dropped, and then you had people who were talking who didn't know how to mute, who didn't know how to join, they could really kind of miss things. And so we felt it was best to do a pre-recorded service and then put it out live at the time when we should have had the service. We've got one of our volunteer chaplains who's coming in, who's going to do Bible reading, poems, reflections and dedications. And it's the bookmarks that we've sent out. So the bookmarks have got a saying on the front, and on the back there is a space for people to leave their own dedication. So the bookmark is replacing the sunflower marker that would have been put in the garden. And these will be left, and these will be given to people to keep at home. So we recognise that some people may not have gardens and may not have somewhere to plant their sunflower. So we thought with the bookmark, somebody's obviously always got a book and they would like to keep it, and then they can write their own dedication. And there's still that link to what would have been the original service to what they're going to have with the virtual service. And they will be blessed by the chaplain, and there will also be an online link for people to be able to download their own bookmark or extra bookmarks if they want to donate to more than one person. The services are going to remain on both our YouTube and our Facebook pages, so people can revisit and watch them. And for those who haven't got internet access and who can't get onto it, we are going to offer them a DVD copy of the service. But there will be a charge for that, but we will not make a profit on it. It will just be the charge that the company who are coming in to help us film it are going to make from it. We have decided to use a company to help us to do this because they have got the cameras, they've got the microphones, and they've got all the editing software that they need. And we feel it's just that little bit better to be able to use that. We have had it at reduced cost because we're a hospice, but we feel it was better to get somebody involved to do it and to help us to do that. So for our go live, we will be monitoring both the Facebook feed and the YouTube feed while the service is taking place, and looking at comments and messages to ensure that we interact with people who take the time. We're also going to have one of our volunteer counsellors who's going to help us as well. So if we need to, we can kind of pick people out from any of the comments that are being made to make sure that we go back. The virtual remembrance garden is going to be monitored, and we are going to share screenshots of those at the end when we've edited the video to put on. And at the end of the video, we are going to do a rolling list of names of those who are remembered. We have trialled this before. We, as a lot of places do, have different walks, and we usually have a virtual bluebell. Well, we have a bluebell walk that happens at the beginning of May. This started as one of the first fundraisers ever to help us to be able to build the original hospice. We're 30 years old next year, so the bluebell walk's been going for about 35 years, and it's the first year we've ever had to cancel it. So we decided to do a virtual one. I'm not sure if this link is going to work, but we will have a go. I'm not going to make you watch the whole 5 minutes, but it will just give you some sort of idea of what can be achieved with a virtual walk. So that just gives you some idea, and that's on our website if you'd like to go and view it further. So we would welcome you to join us. As I said, this is our first time we've done the virtual sunflower service. But if you want to get a feel of it and see how it could work for your Light of Life services, then please do consider joining us. It's 11 o'clock on Saturday, the 13th of June, and it will be streamed on both our Facebook and our YouTube channel. That's me done, Emily.
Wonderful. Just click once more, Claire, and it will just take to the final screen, and then you've given it back. Wow, I didn't even know you could. Right. So I was just going to kind of end on this screen here. That's my email address. It's also Claire's email address. I've got as long as you want, to be honest. I can talk for hours, but I'm sure realistically most of you will have allowed about an hour or so for the webinar. So in which case we've got about 10 minutes left. We can have a chat. I'm sure Claire and I will be very happy to take questions now, or you're very welcome to email either of us separately if you want to ask any questions. So I just put a few out there. What I would suggest you do is if you unmute yourself if you want to ask anything, or you can type in the chat box. A recording will be available. I've just seen a message there saying about the recording. Recording will be available on the Hospice Income Generation Network website, I believe. It will be advertised on the Facebook page as well. So those are a few questions I've suggested that we can talk about, but if anybody has got questions they would like to discuss, either type in the chat or unmute yourself. My colleague Dave has also, I've seen, been answering some questions in there as well. So type away and we will see if we can help. Okay, let me see what is in there. Okay, so somebody's asked a question about what do you do if your tree fills up? Can you add more lights? So if you're on VisuFund and you've got a Christmas tree, yes, there are, in theory, there's a limited number of lights on any tree. You might have 200 lights available. What happens is when somebody clicks donate, if there are no lights left, the system will automatically publish another page. I will see if I can show you what that looks like. Hopefully you can still see my screen. So for example, let's have a look at Sands. So Sands, I think, may be on the call as well. So Sands did their Lights of Love campaign with us in 2017, 2018. And you can see in 2017, it actually went across 3 pages. So what happens is you're on page 1, you click to donate, you run out of lights, and then it will automatically take you to page 2. And when that one filled up, it would automatically take you to page 3. And so there's no limit. I've just seen another question there as well about how many items you can have on a page. How long is a piece of string? How many donations do you think you're going to receive? Wherever possible, I would say, it's best to do as much forecasting as you can. It's really, really difficult to do on the first campaign that you do. But each year it will become more and more clear how many donations you're going to receive. And as I say, there's no limit to the number of pages that will be generated. So it will just keep on generating. I'm going to, Claire, if you can see any questions for you, feel free to answer. They're coming in thick and fast. For those that have created their own tree for Light of Life, do they tend to be recent deceased individuals? That's a question from Marcia. From what I've seen, not necessarily recently deceased at all. It's an alternative. Claire's mentioned Much Loved, a brilliant tribute platform, which is obviously kind of all year round. VisuFund tends to be more seasonal, so you might be looking at. You could be looking at somebody who passed away 20 years ago that's still being remembered on the tree. We've seen all sorts. Some of them are very, very raw. Some of them are very recent. But in the nature of any kind of fundraising appeal, when the emotion is very, very strong, you perhaps will get more donations. So if it was somebody, perhaps even a funeral collection, or in lieu of flowers at a funeral, is obviously going to be more effective at that time. Let's have a look. let's see what else we've got. Can you embed this into your hospice website? Yes, in a way. I'm going to put Woodlands on the spot. So this is Woodlands Hospice website. I'm on their domain name. When you are on their Forget Me Not page, you can see an embedded version of the appeal. So you can see it. This is read only. As I said before, the reason why we can't show the whole screen is because it has to run through our platform through security, for security reasons. You know, we could build microsites and all that kind of stuff, but you'd be going into thousands of pounds as opposed to keeping that cost down. And we're really keen to keep your return on investment good. So you can see a read-only version so people can see the messages and read them. If I then click anywhere on this image, it's going to take me through to the VisuFund site. And what I should also say at the top there, if you're interested in marketing, we'll throw in, you know, if you've got UTM tracking and you're big in on digital marketing, for example, there's a lot of data that you can collect. I'm a data nerd. There's all kinds of bits of data that you can collect to kind of find out where people have come from. We give you those referral codes and allow you to track the success of different marketing campaigns that you're doing. Let's see what else we've got. If anybody else has, what are the funds? So Claire Howard has asked, how are the funds generated on the site sent to the charity? How regular? Claire, we don't hold donations. So when you join VisuFund, you connect a Stripe account. Anyone who doesn't know Stripe, it's a bit like PayPal, but it's a really, really good payment processor. They are absolutely the market leaders in terms of what's possible. You connect your Stripe account and the donations that are made on the platform go directly to you. And those payouts are generated according to whatever payment schedule you've set. By default, I believe it's every day. I know a lot of people prefer to set that to once a week for the purpose of reconciling donations, but by default it's every day. You'll get that money straight away. We do not hold it. I don't want your donations, you need them, and we're really, really keen to make sure that it's protected and it's going directly to you. So we also make it really clear to supporters when they're donating that you're going to get all the data. So not only is the donation going straight to you, but you're going to get all the data as well. You're going to be able to set your own opt-in consents and your own whatever you're doing regarding GDPR, if you're doing it granular or if you're just asking across the different channels, so email, SMS, post, telephone, etc. You can set all that yourself. You'll get all that data. We make it very, very clear, and there's always a link to your privacy policy on the donation form as well, just before they donate, because it's absolutely critical to us that donors know what's going to happen with their data when you get it.
Emily, can I just jump in quickly?
Please.
Corinne's asked a really good question about the majority of people who've taken part in Light of Life tend to be of an older generation, and how do we think running a virtual campaign will affect them taking part for the technology and the ability? And that is a really, really good point, and something that we have been struggling with, which is why we've decided to trial it with our Sunflower campaign. Obviously it's got a smaller income target than what Light of Life has, and it's got a smaller board of people than what our Light of Life has. So we've done a targeted campaign. We are going to use our ambassadors to call those people that we can call before the event, just to check if they can join. If they can't join, what we can do to help them. For example, we're going to look at sending them the DVD, and we will also send out, as part of the thank you letter and as part of the emailer, some simple, straightforward guides with photos of how to get online and how to join us and try and talk to people. It is something that we are trialling with Sunflower. If it doesn't work, we are going to look at something different for our Light of Light service. I hope that helps.
Fabulous. I've stopped screen sharing because I'm sure nobody wants to see that anymore. Does anybody else have any other questions? I think I've answered most of them.
Emily, could I ask a question?
Hi, Carol, please.
Hi. I just noted what Claire said that about the older generation, and that's always been my concern, re Light Up Alive. But I've spoken to a couple of vicars this week about potentially services that we would have in their churches at Light Up Alive and how they feel about virtual and live stream services. I was absolutely encouraged with the feedback I got from them. Considering a lot of their parishioners are the older generation, during lockdown, a lot of their families have helped them with technology and using technology. And a couple of the churches have mentioned to me that the live stream and YouTube service at Easter that they did actually had a bigger viewing than their normal weekly congregation. And that's taken account of the older generation. So I think we should seek assurance or reassurance from that really moving forward. But I think it's still a lovely idea to have the ambassadors make those telephone calls to check if they can do it.
Definitely, Carol. It's certainly something that with the volunteer chaplain who's doing our service for us, I spoke to her about her church services that she's been doing, and she's finally got her PCC to agree to having Wi-Fi in the church. So even when things do go back to normal, they are going to continue streaming their Sunday services within the church as well, because there is people who are housebound, who are disabled, who can't make it into the church, who've joined their church services and have found a real comfort from that. So I think we don't need to underestimate the older generation, but we do need to make sure we're mindful of being able to access that for everybody.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions or anything they'd like to say? Have you maybe seen anything that you would like to share? Have you done anything interesting in your own hospice that you think the group could benefit from? Please feel free to unmute yourself or whatever. Okay, I don't think anybody else has any questions. No one wants to say anything. You've all got ideas and you're not sharing them. Keep them to yourself. So the recording for this will be shared, as I said, with the Hospice Income Generation Network. Anybody who, for whatever reason, can't access that, I believe there's a website. Do we have a representative from Hospice Income who can just tell us the site?
I think that's Anita.
Anita, are you there?
She just put it in the chat.
Yeah. So it's hospice-ign.org.uk. So do have a look on there. It will probably be a couple of days before we get the video ready for you, but certainly some point next week. Have a look. If you've got any questions for me, send me an email, emily@visufund.com. I hope I've answered all of your questions and given you a decent overview of what we do. As I say, I'm massively a cheerleader for what you're doing. I will help you through the whole thing if you're nervous of technology, so please don't be scared. And I hope that was useful. Thank you so much to Claire in particular for neither of us expected so many people to come. We both thought maybe 15, 20 people would be interested, and we didn't expect these sorts of numbers, so we're chuffed to bits that you've been able to join us. This was a virtual event, so it's proof that it can be done with all sorts of internet technologies. Anita has just asked what's Claire's email address. Claire, can you just remind us your email address?
It's Claire, claire.C-L-A-I-R-E.ashby@hokh.co.uk. And I'm happy to answer any questions by email. And Anita's just asked me to share my feedback from the virtual Sunflower event with the Hospice Network as well, which I will be doing once we've had the event. But please do feel free to join us on the 13th, and fingers crossed it goes well.
I'm sure it will. Good luck, Claire. We'll be rooting for you. Right. Okay. I think that's all. I think let's wrap it up there. Stay in touch. We'll get through this and we can do it together. So lovely to see you all. Thank you very much. Take care. See you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.